Hey now. Hey y'all. Hey everybody. What's good, y'all? See, I'm on time today. I'm on time today. I'm on time. Hey, Lady Moon, Copper, Engine, Reclassified, Black Indian, Original Intellect, my Lisa, David. Hey y'all, everybody watching. Hey now, smash the like button, y'all, please. And I'm not gonna hold it long today. Well, it is gonna be a lot of reading because we're now gonna get into the third section of Carter Wood's lecture to his folks before he left here. You know, he was 50 years old when he wrote that article. I also want to remind everybody that emailed me to give them a copy of this document. Hey, Black Indian migrated here. Uh, Everybody that emailed me that wanted a copy of this document from Carter G. Woods, this book, it's uploaded on our website. Okay. And I pinned it to the top. I'm not emailing to nobody. It's take too long to type up all y'all names. So it's easier if you just go on our website and let me show you where to go. I put the link in the chat. It should take you directly to here. I want to share. Yeah, this is what I want to share. Should take you directly to our site. And it's under the political. Anything I upload and say, hey, it's on the website for you to have, like lectures. And I'm going to eventually start loading up my slides so that you could download those too. So you just click this button and you'll get the whole thing. Click it. You could download it. You could print it. I wouldn't print it. It's 300 something pages. I would just get a drive from CBS because it will take up a lot of space on your computer. So if you go get one of those flash drives from CBS, you could download it onto that flash drive and save it into that drive. Once it's downloaded, you can then save it to the flash drive and then deep it out of your download drive, okay, to free back up the space. But there it is right there. So you don't have to email me. You just go straight to our website here and boom, it's right there. Okay. That's that. The next thing I want to get into, I'm just going to start reading because it's a lot of reading. Let me close that tab out. It's a lot of reading that I want to do. Hey, Juan. Hey, Bridget, Black Wild Indian immigrated. So let's read. Let's get it. Let's just start. I'm good right to it. And at the end, of course, I will open up the panel for anybody to come on. But I really want you to read because a lot of people know about this document, but they don't actually read it. And that's when we miss out on a lot of misinformation and things. Let me hide this. So we're going to start with the free Negro before the law. Okay. The free Negro in the colonies. Okay. These are Negroes that came into the colonies, from that did not go to Oklahoma. All right. The free Negro in the colonies was nominally and in some cases actually as much a part of the body politic as was the free white man. Okay. So you got free Negroes and you got free white men. What few differences there became more apparent in those parts where there were many poor whites emerging from indentured servitude and therefore finding it easier to associate with Negroes than with their former masters. And that's even like today. A lot of white people that are looked down on because they don't have like specific levels of career, like high school education or some sort of grad school credentials with associate's degree or whatever. They get looked at down on too, just being low class. Okay. So certain incidents of color, which mark the Negro as member of a decidedly different race. Okay. Certain incidents of color, which mark the Negro as member of a decidedly different race. However, gradually brought into colonial custom and law some distinctions from which this class suffered until the more liberal attitude resulting from the struggle for the rights of a man of men during the American Revolution. So that we need to highlight that, because you have to remember when we're reading that certain incidents of color which marked the Negro as a member decidedly different race. Because what was their race before they were hello? What was the race before they were Negroes when they came on in 1830? They were the Indians that stayed and didn't go to Oklahoma. Yo, give me a 1 if you clearly see that. And don't forget, this document was written around the same time as the 1-drop rule, Watchapleckers bullshit. And you remember, in those days, you couldn't say you was no damn Indian, because you go to jail, they'll arrest you. That was the decidedly different race. What was their race? It wasn't called Africans before that. Yo, you need to listen. People don't read. Don't tell me I can't read and comprehend. I know damn well one thing I can do is read and comprehend. And then they'll look you in your face and tell you that ain't what it said. That ain't what it said. You know what? Them the people that's mad. Get away from them. It's a tactic even used in corporate management. They don't like you to know things that you don't need to know. They don't like you to know. You are not allowed to be able to interpret writings. Oh no, not you low level person, you. The status of the free Negro did not materially change for the worse thereafter until the 20s and 30s of the 19th century, when practically all of the southern and middle states and a few communities in the north began to restrict and, in some cases, to debase the free Negro to a status next to that of a slave. Honey, hey, Tahanga, hey, Adrian, hey, Black Wolf, what's good? Honey, you're seeing what was done to your ancestors. This is true. Now, some of this you're going to have to dodge the hijack. Now, here we go. The transition, however, required some time. Now, you got to understand, when you're not part of a company, just think of it in this terms. When they say this, let me read the paragraph again. The status of the Negro did not materially change for the worse thereafter until the 20s and 30s of the 19th century, when practically all of the southern and middle states and a few communities in the north began to restrict, and in some cases to debase, y'all know what debase means, the free Negro to a status next to that of a slave. So you got to, hey, Dre Cobbs, you got to understand, this is the same thing when you go. Remember when they teach us, be good, go to school, and our parents was really trying to instill this in us. Go to school, do your homework, get off of, when you get out of school, you go take up a trade or go to college so you can get a good job. So now you're debased, and that's been going on for a long time, and still this day they have these attitudes. When you go to get that job, you are debased. You are very inferior of everybody that's in there, especially all the white people. Yeah, oh yeah. Now, see what I went through in the 80s in the corporate world, being a brown Indian woman, American Indian, that is. I'm not a Hindu Indian. I'm American Indian. I'm from this soil. My ethnicity is American. I am an American. All right. Now, what I went through in the 80s, okay, let me just turn my camera back on. What I went through in the 80s, a lot of you millennials did not experience racism. Not the same as I did. It was worse back in the 80s, like when I got out of high school. Me being the only brown girl, being a brown girl, it was terrible. Everything was very manual. There was not a lot of technology. Okay. It was worse for us in the office. We dealt with terrible racism in the work office, and we still do to these days, this very day. But I tell you what I went through, and us Gen X as young women and men, what we went through working in the corporate world, you guys probably will never experience. So when we tell you what we went through, it's hard for you to understand because there's been so many changes since 30 years ago. Okay. So yeah. So yeah, understand that really. Um, Let me get back to the document. This is a great read. The transition, however, required some time. The feeling against the Negro in Maryland, for example, did not develop rapidly. Although the intermarriage of the races was prohibited there in 1663, and the measure was made more stringent by other acts in 1681 and 1717. The free Negroes could apparently vote and hold office there, for they were not legally deprived of this right until 1810. Virginia early endeavored to prevent the miscegenation of the whites and blacks, deprived the latter of the right to hold office in 1705, and prohibited them from voting in 1723. In North Carolina, the situation was more favorable to the free Negro, although the colony prohibited the intermarriage of the races in 1723 and 1741. The Negroes were permitted to vote there until 1835. During the colonial period, too, we find that the free Negro in Pennsylvania was subject to some of the regulations made for Negro slaves in the matter of trials and punishments. Prior to 1700, free Negroes were tried in the same courts in which white men were tried. Thereafter, they were brought before special courts only, although the law should have been legally applied to Negroes rather than to free Negroes. But custom would have it as it worked out. Distinctions, too, were made in the penalties for murder, arson, burglary, or rape, all of which were punishable by death in the case of the Negro, whereas in the case of the white man, up to a year. In 1718, he would suffer death only if guilty of murder. To prevent, so they could rape us, but black men, they get the murder trial. Still the same kind of shit today. Injustices in the judicial system. You know that. Still same shit, different time. But let me get back to it. To prevent the vagrancy as a result of the increase in numbers, there was enacted in 1726 a law for binding out able-bodied Negroes who did not work. That same year, special penalties were imposed for harboring slaves, for the intermixture of the races, for frequenting tippling houses. Those are hoe houses, y'all. For carrying arms and for assembling in companies. So we was doing some old bogus shit back then. They had their little hoe houses like they got them now. And in New York, oh my goodness, it's even just disgusting. What they do is they rent those box trucks and they put up tents in them bitches and they let women go in there and prostitute on the third shift. A lot of them be crackheads, but it's just disgusting. And the pimp is sitting in the truck in the front. It's just terrible. So we're not gonna paint our behavior pretty because it just wasn't. And that's what we got to understand. We was doing what we doing today, we was doing back then. It's just modernized today. The free Negro in that colony could not travel from place to place without a pass. And if his freedom was questioned, the burden of proof was on his side. The situation was better in New York than in Pennsylvania. It did not seem necessary to enact there so many precautionary measures as some other colonies passed. By the time 1712, when the slave insurrection of that year frightened the people of the city and colony. However, the feeling against the Negro was intensified, and especially so in 1741, when several plots and conflagrations in the city were charged to slaves. Yet most of the restrictions in the colonial laws of New York referred to Negroes held as slaves rather than to those who were free. But with the increase of race prejudice, the latter suffered from the same discriminations. Here we go in my old racist state. In Connecticut, as in New York, there did not develop immediately sufficient racial distinction to proscribe the free Negro rigidly, although slavery was recognized and protected by the general court of that colony. The same may be said in the case of Massachusetts, in spite of the fact that the state prohibited trading with Negroes, mulattoes, and Indians in 1698. Now, you know you got to dodge the hijack because you know the Negro is the Indian, but and by this time they made it so that the person with the more white European feature was the Indian, and you know that from the Sons of Liberty. Okay, One Drop was back then too, so don't see it as a difference. Okay, and let me see. With the exception, let me see. Let me go back. Now it's restricted the emancipation of mulattoes and Negroes in 1703 that they might not become chargeable, and prohibited their intermarriage with the whites in 1705. Okay, with the whites. Okay, because you know when we read about the black governors, okay, they remember he said they said his wife might have been an Indian. Betty. See, you can bust them all up in these damn lies. So we can dodge the hijack. With the exception of certain regulations for the return of fugitives and the like, free Negroes were not generally disturbed in the enjoyment of the fruits of their labor in New England, although they were not actually accepted as equals of the whites. And they still hold this attitudes today. But you know what? They die early. They do. Hey, Key Norfolk. During the colonial period, there arose in certain communities some fear as to what might happen in case of too many firearms in the hands of free Negroes, whose contact with the slaves was unrestricted. They were therefore eliminated from the militia altogether, or, as in Virginia, for example, in 1755 and 1757, the free mulattoes, Negroes, and Indians belonged to the militia, where were required to appear without arms. So now, you have to understand when they're saying the mulattoes, the Indians, and the Negroes, you got to understand when these people came here, they were black Europeans. So you got the black Europeans, then you got the Indians, and then you got the mulattoes. Do y'all understand and get it now? You got the black Europeans, you have the mulattoes, okay, and you have the Indians, and you got the whites. Do you now understand? And then after a while, they got sick and tired of trying to depict it who was the Indian and who was the Negro. A hot mess. Black Europeans came on them damn ships. So it's hard to decipher between the black Europeans and the Indians. It definitely was. At first, there was a distinction to enlist Negroes as soldiers in some of the colonies, and the Council of War decided not to accept them. When they got into a strait during the awful ordeal of the struggle, however, the colonies changed their attitude. Some of them enacted laws granting freedom to all Negroes who would don the colors. And cowardly masters were often willing to have their Negroes go to the front in their places on the same condition. Runaway slaves pretending to be free were sometimes accepted as soldiers. There was a new day for the free Negro. Some of the Negro soldiers in the American Revolution served in special units, whereas the majority of them went into the ranks side by side with the white companions. Virginia authorized a more liberal manumission of slaves in 1782 and proclaimed all Negroes who had enlisted with the promise of manumission and had served faithfully. Rhode Island raised a regiment of slaves in 1778. New Hampshire liberated her slaves, enlisted Negroes, and gave to those who served 3 years for the same bounty offered others. Connecticut did not likewise in raising a Negro regiment in 1781, and Maryland undertook to raise 750 Negro troops the same year. Slavery was instantly abolished in some states. In others, it passed away by gradual emancipation. Thus, encouraged, the free Negro decidedly increased during this period, and there came to a change in the attitude towards this class. The very increase, however, was one reason why this did not long continue. Settling down to the problem of working out government in this country, the whites soon forgot the very distinctions against which they had so long fought and incorporated them into their state constitutions as they later incorporated them into the federal constitution and compromising with the less liberal states. So if you're listen, when you incorporate them into the goddamn constitution, all right, in the very, very beginning, it was Indians and whites. The only race of people they mentioned in that constitution is Indians not taxed as being a people. Otherwise, everything was the people. It is not hard to find that damn Indian. I digress. They're developed in those states in which the free Negroes were numerous of feeling that the rights and privileges of this class should differ from those of white persons. The states tended then to restrict the free Negro to protect the personal rights of the whites and to prevent servile insurrection. Finally, an effort was made to stop the growth of the free Negro class or to get rid of it altogether. The regulation with respect to the free Negroes thereafter therefore tended to become almost identical with those of the slaves. Okay? So now you treating the Indians just like you do goddamn man, let's get it. Most of the states had restrictions having direct bearing on earning a subsistence. Statutes were enacted to prevent loafing and vagrancy. The children of indigent free Negroes were apprenticed to mechanical trades in some of the states. If a free Negro refused to work and become a public charge, there was usually some way for disposing of him, selling him into servitude or certain period or into permanent slavery. Hot mess, y'all. The right of locomotion of the free Negroes was generally restricted. While they remained at home among their neighbors, their freedom was not questioned. But in going from place to place, they were usually suspected and often imprisoned as fugitive slaves, like they do now. Always stopping the niggas. Always. They still do this today. A Negro walking around is always a suspicion to a white cop. If the victim claimed to be free, the burden of proof was on his side. In some cases, when moving beyond their neighborhood, they were reduced to the necessities of obtaining passes, very much like those issued to the slaves. But here, they needed more. In hostile communities, see, today we got driver's license when we drive across state to state, town to town. That's the same shit. But today, honey, it's a driver's license. You be free. They look you up, see if you be free. Because if you not be free, they got a warrant for your arrest. You not be free no more. And such certificates could be easily counterfeited. Free Negroes in transit, though the county, were subjected to all sorts of investigation. So duplicating certificates, just like they be making these fake IDs. They still doing the same shit. But hold up. You notice they didn't mention the Indians? Have you noticed that? They're little brown people walking around too. Those swarthy people, those tawny Indians, like my skin complexion. I'm tawny. Where's their little okay? See, I told you, you can't hide the Indian. The penalty for counterfeiting such papers varied from heavy fines to imprisonment. Hey, they still had the Moorish paperwork back then, y'all. Did the black Europeans have the Moorish paperwork back then? They weren't gonna get me. Oh my goodness. The free Negro, moreover, gradually lost the right of assembly. It was early reported that the Negro assemblies were tumultuous and rebellious, and legislation to this effect may be found in the early statutes of the colonies providing for the flogging of Negroes found in such meetings. A hot mess. Listen, y'all. The free Negro, moreover, gradually lost the right of assembly. It was early reported that the Negro assemblies were tumultuous and rebellious, and legislation to this effect may be found in the early statutes of the colonies providing for the flogging of Negroes found in such meetings. Later, the penalty applied, especially to free Negroes, was that of being fined and imprisoned. Still, same shit today. However, this did not generally apply to the assembly of Negroes for the moral and spiritual uplift on Sundays. Yeah, you need to go get indoctrinated in that church. Some of these laws enacted by the states after the reaction reflect the spirit of the times. In 1805, Maryland prohibited Negroes from selling corn, wheat, or tobacco. Okay, see, they still did the same thing to the Indians in the hood. You forbid, you cannot. They told you can't sell no weed. Same shit. Can't sell no weed and no cigarettes. Still to this day on the street. What was that guy named that put his knee on the neck? I can't breathe. Same shit, y'all. Nothing has changed. You can't sell weed, but they got all these little smoke tobacco stores. You can go up there and get you a mad bags of weed. A hot fucking mess. Same shit, different time. Negro evidence against a white man was prohibited in 1809, and in 1810, the race was disfranchised. Yo, let's get it. Still today, they have agencies that help um uh stop you from going against your racist bosses and stuff. They have these agencies set up, but you need to take them motherfuckers to court too, because they forget they can be touched too. Shit is crazy. Negro evidence against a white man was prohibited in 1809 and in 1810, and still in 2025. The race was disfranchised. You better believe it. They disfranchised all the Indians, all their farmers. Y'all, listen. Listen, I'm telling you, you're hearing this shit. In 1825, instead of merely imprisoning free Negroes for certain crimes, they were to be whipped, imprisoned, and then banished under the penalty of being sold as slaves for a term. Virginia prohibited the coming of free Negroes into the state in 1793, required them to be registered in 1800, prohibited them from carrying arms without license at the session of the legislature in 1805 and 1806 and in 1820, provided that they might be hired out to pay their taxes. North Carolina, which in 1777 had already prescribed free Negroes as witnesses except in suits against each other, saw reason in 1786 to enact a law against the entertainment of slaves by free Negroes and their intermarriage of slaves with free Negroes, except with the consent of the masters concerned. By a law in 1812, Negroes could not be mustered into the militia except as musicians. Bullshit. In 1826, there followed an act which restricted the right of free Negroes to trade in certain articles and to peddle beyond their county without a license. That same year, the coming of free Negroes into the state was prohibited under the severe penalty of $500. South Carolina, with the exception of the Charleston, had never been very liberal toward the free Negro. There was not any possibility of much change during this period. Georgia found it necessary in 1808 to provide for binding out free persons of color, okay, roving about the county in idleness and dissipation. The state provided for guardians of free Negroes in 1810 and prohibited the immigration of others of this class in 1818. Guardians. The state provided for guardians of free Negroes in 1810 and prohibited the immigration of others of this class in 1818. Florida prohibited the immigration of free Negroes in 1826, restricted the franchise to whites in 1827, and in the general black code followed the regulations of Georgia. Tennessee required the registration of free Negroes in 1806, forbade them to retail spirituous liquors in 1813, and prohibited the intermarriage between the two races in 1822. They stopped, Kentucky enacted in 1808 a measure to prevent the coming of free Negroes to that state and other measures against conspiracies of insurrection in 1810 tended to take over the black code of other reactionary states. Farther south and west in the slaveholding territories were there where there was a much smaller free Negro population. It was not sufficient for the states of Alabama and Mississippi to follow the fortunes of the seaboard slave states and limiting the franchise to the whites and the like. Endeavoring to keep the free Negroes out altogether, these states added such other provisions as their development of the strictly slaveholding states required, and the number of free Negroes being thus kept down. The problem did not become acute in those quarters. Let me start right here. Okay. Let me stop this for 1 second, y'all. Let me tell you something. Now, let me stop this for a minute because I want to talk to y'all for a minute so you can understand this. Hey, Collect Conscious Bino, how you doing? So, listen, when you have to understand that over here were free Negroes, which were black Europeans. You have to understand this. And then you have the Indians, and then you have the whites, and you have the mulattoes. All right. So when they're going around, the free Negroes and stuff, the Indians too. The Indians, when you're hearing, okay, you got Indians, you got free Negroes. Okay, those are black Europeans. And because they are really the ones that came to work in the colonies. All right. We already was Indians on our own land. All right. So you have the Indians, you have the whites, you got the free Negroes. Okay. Those were black Europeans. And you got the mulattoes. So free Negroes and the Indians, they did not allow them in particular states because it would increase the freedom of Negroes. All right. So when you have us, and when you make a baby with the black Europeans, it's hard to pick who is who. We were, as Indians, we were giving those same last names as them. So it's hard to see who's the Indian and who's not. So all these years later, 1900s, 80s, they come up with this fake ass test to say, oh, you're from Africa. Get out of here. You are never going to demolish out the Indian. You can't do it. Okay? So, and this is why I can't wait to A1 come on, because there were Black Europeans brought over here as indentured servants and slaves. Give me a 1 if you understand that. There's a lot you need to know. Because, see, in your head, hey, Dulcina, I'll be opening up in a minute after I do some more reading. In your head, you're taking that, you got to get rid of that Hollywood depiction of Indians. Okay? Let me just put it up for you. That little Hollywood depiction of who was running around here. These dudes was not down south. Okay? Now, when you say an Indian, these are not the dudes that they're talking about. Okay? These are not tawny people. No. These are not the Indians that was running around in the Confederate Southern states. I guarantee you their asses wasn't living in no South Carolina. All right? No, so I'm going to say this again, and you better catch it. You got the Indian, you got the Negro, the Black European, and you got the mulatto, and you got the whites. Black Europeans look like us. And in some cases, Africans favor us too. We can't prove our ancestry to Africa. Black Europeans can. I'm not going to keep giving up all the cookies. At least not mine, because still I have a pending case. So listen to me again. You got the Indians. Get this picture of the Indian out your damn head. Please. Now, you got the Indians, me. Okay? You got the Black Europeans who came over at the same time as white people from Europe as indentured servants and slaves. Okay? Yeah. And you got the mulattoes. So if you make a baby, if the Indian make a baby with a white person, because Indians weren't permitted to marry white people. They weren't either. You couldn't marry. Indians could not marry white people. And neither could the niggers, who are referred to as Black Europeans. Now do you see? Disenfranchise niggas. How? Boing, boing, boing. Let's get it. You disenfranchise everything. Let me. That Indian, okay, and that's a real sign, is not the same as these people. These people, I guarantee you, with that one shot, one gun, was not holding Pookie and Ray Ray's grandfathers down in the South. Get the hell out of here. You got to get the picture, the right picture in your head now. We're not going to play. Black, okay? These are the people who lost, whose land was stolen. Not these people. If it was, their picture would be in news articles found back in these times. But what do they give you? Whose land was stolen? Not their land. This is the picture you get in the newspaper. Not this picture. You get this picture of land being exploded up in Oklahoma and South Carolina. Give me a 1 if you understand this. I'm not going to be playing around with little butthurt people in YouTube that get mad. I'm talking about on the mainland. I am not talking about Central and South America. I'm talking about the soil my ancestors resided on. That's just where I'm at right now. It ain't going nowhere. We've been here. All right, y'all, let's get it. Let's finish getting it. In Louisiana, they were under in Louisiana under foreign control. There had been an unusual race admixture with the Negro, and on the basis of social equality, a different condition obtained. In spite of the rigorous treatment to which the slaveholding regime subjected the blacks, when that territory became a part of the United States, exceptions to the laws applied to free Negroes generally had to be made in the case of those whose equal rights and privileges were guaranteed in the Purchase Treaty of Louisiana in 1803. And that was I don't even believe that was a real purchase. Yet, we find Louisiana preventing the introduction of free Negroes in 1807 and restricting suffrage, which is voting rights, to whites in its Constitution of 1812. So, listen, honey. That same year, however, in the middle of the Second War with England, it authorized a military corps of free men of color commanded by whites. In 1815, another act allowed a police corps of free blacks in Natchitoches. By the time, moreover, the states of the North were solving the problem in various ways. In Delaware, according to the law of 1787, a manumitted slave could not vote or hold office, nor give evidence against a white man, nor enjoy any other rights of free men other than to hold property and to obtain redress in law and equity for any injury to his or her person or property. In 1807, Delaware prohibited free Negroes from coming into the state to reside. They wanted to stop free Negroes. Okay, when you're saying this shit, you're saying, listen, they did not want all these free babies because then they get the rights. They wanted that. Man, let me tell you something. This is horrible. The Negroes in Pennsylvania, on the contrary, were nominally given all rights of free men in the year of 1780, when the Act of Gradual Emancipation of the Slaves was passed. That year, the old laws were abolished, and all restrictions apparently passed away. For the next generation, there seemed to have been little change, for as late as 1820, the state enacted a law to prevent the kidnapping of free Negroes. In 1798, New Jersey prohibited the immigration of free Negroes without a certificate and prevented free Negroes within that state from going from county to county without such a document. Your driver's license. Fake. In New York, where gradual emancipation was provided for in 1799, the situation with respect to the rights of the free Negro was about the same in New Jersey. Although the state enacted a law against the kidnapping of slaves in 1808, the second constitution of the state, which intended free manhood suffrage to the whites, barred Negroes unless they had property of the value of $250. And we read that a couple of years ago. Remember, he was the black guy was telling the Indian, okay, may I say, was telling the white guy that he was pro trash and he got $250 and he got we read that a couple of years ago. Connecticut disfranchised the free Negro in its Constitution of 1818, and so did Rhode Island in 1822. And the states formed out of the Northwest Territory, where slavery was gradually eliminated by the 6th article of the Ordinance of 1787, there followed other measures. Now, mind you, we had black governors down here in Connecticut. There followed other measures which had to do with the restriction of the free Negro. You call them, listen, this was especially true when they began to seek that country as an asylum from the oppression in the South. Ohio, for this reason, found it necessary to begin as early as 1803 to make distinctions between the two races. Listen, y'all. Oh, Lady Moon, thank you, love. A hot mess. Ohio, for this reason, found it necessary to begin as early as 1803 to make distinctions between the two races. They talking about that Indian and that nigger, y'all. Give me a 1 if you understand this. Hey, Copper. By its first constitution, the elective franchise was restricted to white persons. At the session of the first legislature convened under this constitution, no free black was to be permitted to reside in the state except he had a certificate of freedom. Those remaining in the Commonwealth had to obtain such a document without which they could not be hired by any employer. At the session of 1806, 1807, no free Negro could come into the state without giving a bond, not to become a public charge. By the same act, he could not give evidence against a white person. At the session of 1818, 1819, however, there was some effort made to protect the Negroes against kidnapping, that those actually free might enjoy that status. Indiana prohibited the Negro from being a witness in a case in which a white man was concerned, prescribed the intermarriage of the races, required a bond of free Negroes entering the state, and later, by the Constitution of 1851, deprived the Negro of the right to vote and to serve in the military. Illinois, in its first constitution, restricted the rights of to franchise. See, this is what's going on back and forth since the Indians were set free, and and listen, oh my God, it's just so much that you have to understand. And because this type of behavior is what actually led up to the Civil War. Illinois, in its first constitution, restricted the right of franchise to white person. In 1819, required a certificate of free Negroes entering the state, and in 1829, exacted a bond of those desiring to settle, and forbade the intermarriage of the races the same year. These restrictions, see, when they did these things to prevent the population from growing and being able to becoming in power under the Constitution, because the more you make babies with white people and you're a mulatto, you're going to be treated different. You're never going to vote for people who treat you harshly. So in an effort to do that, they stopped the marriages and you couldn't have baby. So you're white, they just did not want the free people was a threat. The Indians were a threat. Both the Indians and the Negroes, okay, were a threat to these Black Europeans, and these Negroes, Indians, were a threat to the Constitution and growing. All right. So this fear was intensified by the Denmark Vesey plot in Charleston, South Carolina in 1822, by the Walker Appeal, published broadcast to slaves in 1828, urging them to rise against their masters, and by Nat Turner's Insurrection in Virginia. Yo, there it is. Oh, listen, honey, this is a hot mess. When the news of these movements was noised abroad, it struck terror to the very hearts of the slaveholders, forcing many of them to the position of going armed among their slaves and exercising every precaution against the free Negro. Honey, the action of the various states during this crisis is illuminating. In the middle of the excitement, they resorted to further legislation. At the session of the legislature in 1831, 1832, now this is Indian removal. Listen, this is Indian removal, y'all. And this is those that remained. Maryland endeavored to get rid of free Negroes by a law providing for the removal of free persons of color to Liberia. There it is, y'all. Listen. Listen. At the same time, it also forbade the immigration of free Negroes into the state and imposed many disabilities on the resident free people of color so as to force them to go to Liberia. At the session of 1835-36, Maryland made the printing of papers calculated to excite and create, discontentment among people of color, and a felony and a high offense against the supremacy of the state. The following year, the navigation of the vessels under the sole command of Negroes was prohibited by law. At the session of 1841-42, it was made a felony for a free Negro to call for demand or receive abolition papers. The following year, the state prohibited the formation and assemblage of secret societies of Negroes. And at the session of 1846-1847, more rigidly prohibited the admission of the evidence of Negroes in a case in which a white person might be concerned. In 1854, there followed an act imposing restrictions on free Negroes and their employers in their contracts for services. And in 1858, another measure to prevent the Negroes and slaves from having or using boats on the Potomac River. Okay. Virginia responded to the spasmodic appeal of the drastic action. At the session of 1830-31, this is during Indian, y'all, and the legislature prohibited meetings for teaching free Negroes or mulattoes to read and write, penalized whites for holding meetings with Negroes, and prescribed assembly with the slaves for such a purpose. The very next year, this legislature brought out new enactments against preaching by slaves and free Negroes and against slaves because they didn't want to have no kind of secret attending any preaching of a white minister at night without written permission. It was provided that no free Negro mulatto should be capable of purchasing or otherwise acquiring permanent ownership except by descent to any slaves other than his or her husband or wife and their children. For writing or printing anything advising persons of color to rebel, a severe penalty was imposed. In 1834, the restrictions in intermarriage were made more rigid. In 1836, there followed a special act to suppress the circulation of abolition literature for a purpose of exciting the Negroes to rise against their masters. And in 1838, free persons of color, okay? See how you jumping back and forth? You got the free persons of color, you got the need. Listen, y'all. You know who's who when you're reading this. You know the black European, when he's talking about the black, he did this crafty. You know the black European he's talking about because that's the motherfucker he wanted to send to Liberia. Then you know who the Indians and you know who the free color is. Free color. Listen. All right, I'm gonna keep going. The life of the free Negroes having thus been made almost intolerable, the state established in 1833 a colonization board to be supported by a poll tax on free Negroes to deport them to Liberia. And in 1856, it enacted a measure providing for voluntary enslavement. Yo, I'd drop a bomb. I think Should I keep going or open up the panel for dialogue? Because I could stop here if you want. Give me a 1 if I should go on and show my other information that I wanted to show you and then open the panel, or give me a 1 if I just keep going a little bit more. Give me a 1 if I keep going. Give me a 2 if I should open the panel for dialogue. And also, I want to show you other stuff, because we've been going exactly for an hour. Bridget says, keep going. Dosey said, keep going. Okay. All right. I'll keep going for a little bit more. All right. Everybody's saying keep going. All right, you guys. I'll keep reading and then I'll stop because I want to show you 2 other videos as well. Following the wake of these other states in 1831, we're still in Indian Removal Act. North Carolina enacted a measure prohibiting free Negroes from preaching. Oh, Pimp Pastor got shut down. Its new constitution, adopted in 1835, limited. Now, these are the individual states making these laws. This is not the U.S. Constitution. Understand that, okay? These are the individual states making their state laws, and all of them are in conflict with the United States U.S. Constitution. It's just that there was nobody there to represent the niggas. Yo, this gets deep. All right. In 1838. Oh, wait a minute. Let me start from the beginning. Following the wake of these other states in 1831, North Carolina enacted a measure prohibiting free Negroes from preaching. No pimp pastors. Its new constitution, adopted in 1835, limited the franchise to free white men. In 1838, the state declared void all marriages between white persons and Negroes or free persons of color to the 3rd generation. Yo, now you got, listen, y'all. I mean, Carter was slick. The let me see. Marriages to declare void all marriages between white persons and Negroes or free color or free persons of color to the 3rd generation. In 1840, they're telling you right here, in 1840, free Negroes were forbidden to wear or keep Bowie knives and the like without having obtained a license. In 1858, there was enacted a measure for the hiring out of free Negroes in the discharge of fines, and by the same law, they were prohibited from selling liquor. Same shit back then, same shit today. Can't sell you weed. Tennessee, from her point of view, thought it necessary to forbid the immigration of free Negroes in 1831, to proscribe the intermarriage of the races, and to prohibit emancipation except on bond being given, to remove the emancipation out of the state. Its Constitution of 1834 declared that all free Negroes should be exempt from all military duty in time of peace, and also from paying a free pro tax. At the session of the legislature in 1855-56, free Negroes were forbidden to peddle or barter market stuffs. In 1854, the state provided for the transportation of free persons of color to the west coast of Africa. And in 1857, the voluntary enslavement of free persons of color. South Carolina, too, which had already a sufficiently stringent black code to meet all demands, nevertheless reflected the incitement with a measure in 1831 prohibiting Negroes from the manufacture and selling of spirits. In 1834, it prohibited not only the teaching of slaves, but the employment of a colored person as a clerk or salesman in any shop, store, or house used for trading. In 1844, it provided for the punishment of persons disturbing the peace of the state in relation to slaves or other persons of color. Who are these other persons? An act which decidedly restricted the social privileges of the free Negroes. Georgia, equal to the occasion too, supplemented her black code in 1829 by prohibiting the employment of slaves and free persons of color in the setting of types and printing offices. In 1833, they were prohibited from preaching and from carrying firearms. In Alabama, the incitement culmination in the enactment of a law in 1832 prohibiting the settling of free persons of color in that state, penalizing the teaching of slaves or free persons to spell, read, or write. So now you know a lot of why you see on the census sheet can't read, can't write, da 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 da. And you know the writing of passes and Negroes from preaching. In 1852, free Negroes were forbidden to sell liquors, and the appointment of guardians for them was authorized. Listen, y'all. And who do you think the guardian was? I'll wait. Who do you think the guardian was? Especially on the goddamn reservation. I gave you a big hint. Mississippi responded in 1830 with an act providing with punishment by death for persons of color circulating sedition pamphlets. They could not be employed in printing offices, nor could they keep a house of entertainment. Free Negroes, that mean a nightclub. Free Negroes were prohibited from immigrating into the state in 1843 under, listen, free Negroes were prohibited from immigrating into the state in 1843 under penalty of being sold, and an owner could not liberate his slaves without removing them from the state. Louisiana deemed it expedient in 1830 to enact very stringent measures. These dealt with the coming of free Negroes into the state, the writing, printing, speaking, or publishing of what they considered seditious pamphlets, the prohibiting of the teaching of free Negroes or slaves, and the prevention of manumission, except on the condition that the emancipated be removed from the state. They was blocking any kind of power for niggas to get in office, because when you start producing all these babies, okay, whether they're, especially the mulatto ones, they just restricted that. It grew. Every baby was free every time you had a baby, and that's too many because they'll grow up and they'll be eligible for office. I hope you understand this. Finally, in 1859, the state, like some others, provided for voluntary enslavement of free Negroes. Voluntarily enslavement. Okay. Florida enacted measures very much like that of these other states, although it did not act so promptly as the states which were apparently more alarmed. These measures covered the restrictions upon manumission, then the prohibition of the intermarriage of the races, the selling of free Negroes for fines against them, the preventing of their emigration, that's state to state, the provisions for the guardianship of free Negroes, the penalization of the sale of drugs to them, and the act of their voluntary enslavement. Who was selling weed back then? As the institution of slavery had about passed away by the gradual process in most of the northern states at the time of Nat Turner's insurrection, these precautions required in the economy of the South were unnecessary in the North. These states, however, were unusually frightened by the increased immigration of free Negroes into the Commonwealth. That's correct. They always were. Thinking that they might be overrun by such a population, many of the northern communities became arrayed against the free Negroes already resident, and especially against those seeking refuge from oppression in the South. Pennsylvania, then a place of frequent race riots resulting from the influx of free Negroes, easily became induced to provide for the disenfranchisement of Negroes in the new Constitution framed and ratified in 1838. In 1823, New York restricted Negro suffrage to such persons that owned $250 worth of land. We already know that. Move the fears of influx of need to take more drastic action because of an incited multitude of Canterbury. Connecticut enacted special law prohibiting blah, blah, blah. I'm going to stop there because it's telling you what, but I'm going to continue reading it because it's talking about different states. So we'll start here tomorrow, which is on page 41. We're getting through this. But what I want to do is get it down to, because this is going to lead up to the Civil War. But let me get explanation of the tables. These are free Negro heads of families. We started here already. Let me see if it's still going. All right. Yeah, this is the one I actually want up so that I be able to share. We'll start here. We're going to start with Alabama. That's on page 69. So let me stop my share screen. I want to show you 3 videos. But before I show them, I'm going to open up the panel so folks can come on the panel. We watch these 3 videos and we can talk about all of this. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to put the link in the chat, copy, and pin it to the top and go get myself some water while you guys take your time to come up. Let me pin it to the top. Just sit tight in the back. Pin it. It's pinned to the top for anybody to come on. Hold tight while I take a lady break and get some water. And check out my little food. So the link is in the chat. I'll be right back and we're going to watch those 3 videos. So hang tight, you guys. Just hang tight in the back till I come back. Sorry, I'm coming. Hey, Dosina. Where is this? I just
Hey,
seen her.
Sister Bessie.
Hey, I'm just putting my headphones on, ladies. I had to, run to the ladies' room and I'm cooking. That's why I said hold tight. Hey, is this? I'm back. Oh, oh my goodness. Can you hear me, Dosey?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I'm back. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. So they, you have to understand, Bethy. Check out George Washington. Oh, okay. I'll do that. Let me open it in a new tab. Right. Okay. I will read that after these videos. I promise. I promise. I put it in order up here. How you doing, Dosey? Anybody want to
I'm
step on the
doing
piano is
good.
welcome to hit the link and come up. Yeah, that's good. Hey, Wolf. Oh, I turned my camera on, y'all. Y'all got to bear with me. I had to run all the way downstairs, take the chicken out the oven. This man made me cook the same exact thing I cooked yesterday. Some damn jerk chicken and home fried potatoes. He gonna look like a big potato.
That means it was good yesterday.
Yeah, I love home fried potatoes. I could eat that with nothing. I don't need meat. A big bowl of potato and grits. I don't need meat. I wasn't a real meat person anyway when I was little. My mother told me I used to always leave my meat in the plate. But hey, sorry. So I'll come back to that. What are your thoughts about that? The Negro before the law.
No, that's interesting what you were saying about like the Black Europeans and the applications of it. I think it's really interesting because the same time periods that they're saying like these Negro movements and happening with the Indian Removal Act, it adds up as well as they call them the like Great Negro migrations, where they're
Mm-hmm.
going from different sides. So they always are using different terms for the same event in history.
Correct. Facts. I just thought it was so interesting because we always, a lot of us in YouTube always forget that Black European came over here too, and that's why I really can't wait to A1 come and do the build. I think he's getting he's supposed to pick his computer up this week, but he always taught that when those colonists first came here, they were Black Europeans, and they came over here and they made babies.
Right. So when would you say, okay, so we have Negro being used, and I know like the earliest definition they say it's like of uncertain or origins, and then by the time we get to that 1828 dictionary, they're like African descent. So when they're using it for this, do you think it's too kind of mass between whether they're talking about an Indian or a Black European, or were they trying to all from the beginning? Do you think be like, oh, African ancestry?
Well, my thought is okay, and because it's so confusing. Because when you're looking at Black Europeans today in Europe, they do look like us. They look more like us, and a lot of them are indigenous to that area in Europe, I would think. And when you look at the Indian here, they do favor us because they have our skin tones. So we have babies with them. It's hard to determine who is the nigga and who is the uh, the Black European, because those Black Europeans was over here for a long time. If they came here in the 1600s and we're now up to the 1700s, that's a long time. Even 100 years is a long time. You think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how some of them and some of our families are able to mix in with them because they mixed in, or if anyone like hooked up with Black Europeans or anything like that and have that in their ancestry. So I think that
Right.
also can be over time of the looking more the same. Maybe there was more distinctive looks before, but there's been more mixing.
Correct. And I'm like, this is so mind blowing. But the way Carter wrote it, he the way he wrote it, he's telling you the answer and a sneak tip, and it's up for us to really catch it. Because I mean, when he wrote this, he was 50 years old, and he wrote it around the time of the um one drop rule that Walter Pecker passed in Virginia. And he was very upset when he wrote it because he said there's a lot more Negroes across this state, in this country than is reported here.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna ask you about him too. What do you feel about like his Boule kind of like Freemasonry connections?
Well, I feel that a lot of our people that were Boule, it was tough for them. It's just like it is today. It has not changed. That that they have to hide. When I first began showing the thumbnails, I was showing how white people and black people were really threatened. They had to be in the positions. You have to be willing to deceive your people. You have to be willing to lie. And it was his turn. The more you deceive and lie to your people in corporate management, the higher up you go. You have to be able to covet. You have to be able to deceive people, period. It don't matter what the race is. And so him
Yeah, I can
writing that,
definitely
I
see that.
know
Do you think they kind of hide the things in the truth in there though too? Like kind of like go around it, but kind of put the truth in there to be like if people can read through the line.
exactly. And that's exactly what he did in this document. That's why I want everybody to download this document from our site. Read it from the beginning. Don't try to read it all because it's a lot of information that he threw out there at you. And you have to catch what he's saying. You will begin say, "Oh my God, it's what I said." I want everybody to catch it. The man did a phenomenal job exposing on a sneak tip. He was very good at it. And when you sit back and read it, don't read it fast because every time you read it, you're going to find a different clue. And he was a historian. So just look at it like today, people lecturing our community or exposing stuff. Read it, read that document on the weekends. Like when you don't want to be on YouTube watching the fighting and argument, take that time to read that document with some tea. And when you got your mental you time, just read it. And he's got more that he wrote, but that one is a very good one because he breaks down. But also, you got to remember he's giving his perspective too and his opinion. He went through the Racial Integrity Act. This man was born in 1875. So he went through all the black code laws. He went through everything. He went through all he went through everything. Like when he was in his 50s, he went through the Racial Integrity Act. He went through everything. He died in 1957. But prior to that, that was his life. And I can imagine how it was to have to go through what he went through, but he was educated. Being born after he was born after way after the 1875. He was a young man after the Revolutionary War. I mean, not the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, because the Civil War was ended in 1865. It started, yeah, 1865. That's when the Civil War was. He was born in 1875. So he was 10 years old after the Civil War. So
Had
he,
ended. Yeah, and I think that's
yeah,
interesting too, because in school, like by the time we're in school, they teach primarily the Civil War is just all about the abolitionists and is all about the ending of slavery. So they never give you any kind of thought processes of what's actually going on at the time, especially any of the free colors or anything. Is just all, oh, they're abolitionists, the Underground Railroad, and they're just trying to stop slavery.
Facts. Facts. And I always, the United States always went on lookership. They never racially identified us. Never. They always identified us by our color. And on their census sheets, it's only black and white. Or back in the 18, 10, 20, 30s. That's all it was. It was just black and white. You was either B or white. Or in our case, they were coloreds and whites. They didn't put, in the early census, they didn't put Negro, they just put colored, or either you were white. And that's what he pulled from. And you'll see that in a minute. But I want to get into some stuff Trump is doing. His executive order, I don't even know which one I want to do first. Let's do that one first. His executive order. About removing those things from those statutes, the artifacts from the Smithsonian. I'm so glad. Let's get it, y'all. Check this out. Do I want to do this one? Yeah, I want to do it with the ones with these ladies. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do this one. Let's check this out. I'm gonna make it bigger. Fair use. I got that going across.
Well, the nation's capital is home to many famed museums, but questions remain tonight about what messages tourists will see now when they visit. So on Thursday, President Trump signed a new executive order pledging to eliminate what the White House calls divisive ideology from the Smithsonian Institution.
That order also calls for restoring monuments or memorials removed in the past 5 years, which has reignited a debate about the Confederate-era statues. News 4's Dominique Moody is live on the National Mall tonight.
All right, Dominique, bring us up to speed. What have you noticed and what are you hearing outside the museums today?
Erica and Sean, we know we are in the midst of the spring break travel season, which means we typically see a lot of visitors from near and far who come to DC to try to check out some of the national museums or the museums around the area, including the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And we know that this museum in particular, it seems about anywhere between 12 million visitors so far since it's opened its doors. And we know that many people that we spoke with today, they say that they want to ensure that these museums continue to stay a place where people can remember both the history of the entire country.
Oh, like they're trying to erase part of Black culture.
Christopher Hubbard is one of the hundreds of visitors stopping by the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Hubbard says these institutions are valuable.
To me, it sounds like anything that speaks against what most of the country doesn't know, the dirty secrets, they want to erase.
Those thoughts come after President Trump signed what he says will restore truth and sanity to American history. The executive order takes aim at the Smithsonian Institution. Trump directing Vice President J.D. Vance, who is a member of the Smithsonian Board of Regents, to, quote, eliminate improper, divisive, or anti-American ideology from the Smithsonian and its museums, education and research centers, and the National Zoo. The executive order points out exhibits that include race topics at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, along with the American Art Museum. The order looks to prevent recognizing men as women in any respect at the future American Women's History Museum.
This executive order would just be a massive step back to when these museums were presenting just a sliver of that history.
Nika Elder is an associate professor of art history at American University. She says the museums attempt to provide insight into each American experience.
The American Art Museum are not a place where someone would look at the objects and art on view and think about, a shameful history. It is actually very much about the contributions that all Americans, Black Americans, Latinos, like women have made to make America what it is.
The order also hints at returning or replacing statues and monuments of Confederate figures that may have been changed or removed during the past 5 years.
And it's just oblivious to the realities of that, because one of the challenges to taking them down has been the cost and labor and where do you put them.
Despite the potential changes at museums, visitors say they hope these institutions can be a source of truth and education.
This is capturing a moment in time at whichever museum you're at, and there's no theory, there's no ideology. It's fact.
Sean and Erica, we have been seeing many groups of students who have been coming to some of these Smithsonians and these museums to try to really take in all that it has to offer. Now, we did reach out to the Smithsonian along with the White House for a response to this executive order. We're still waiting for a response. Back to you.
Dominique Moody with the latest for us tonight. Dominique, thank you.
Girl, bye. So my thought, and the first thing they show you is these damn handcuffs. And because it's bullshit. That is bullshit. Remove it all. It's not our history. So yes, remove it. What are your thoughts?
I agree. It's how they word it, and I do want to know, what will be put up in its place and how they're gonna go about doing the American history. And I'm interested of who will actually come in to be like a force in that, to be like, this is what we should highlight. But I remember they did it with the military and the database, and they were trying to say, oh, they're trying to remove these people. And no, they were just trying to remove DEI, because these aren't DEI people having the Tuskegee men on highlight. These are just Americans. So they were like, yeah, we didn't remove Tuskegee men. We removed it being a DEI or anything like that. So
correct.
I'm interested to really reading it and seeing it, because they'll highlight it to be like, oh yeah, they just want to remove these people, but that's not what's going down for real. They're trying to highlight American history, and I would like to know, what American history. He was saying some really good things during the Black History Month inauguration celebration, but also what I want to see moving forward is not just this highlight of Muhammad Ali or figures like that. I want them to tell the truth about these other figures, like say that Robert E. Lee was us and not y'all.
Correct. Like exactly. And the little Hollywood Kunta Kinte story and showing, and the fact that just like that hurts us to hear such a lying story about white men going to Africa and snatching people from another continent and bringing them here. That's a lie. There is no way. I mean, it make sense. A lot of white Europeans ancestors did not get here until the 1900s. And if they went to Africa on a ship, okay, let's just say they did. How in the hell, listen, let me go back to where I was. How in the hell, I thought I had it up. All right, I do have it up. It's just, I hate when it does that. How are you going to bring a few white guys? Make it make sense, Donald Trump. This is the shit that need. And if you're listening, this is the bullshit that we need to take out of the Smithsonian. Donald Trump, I'm asking you to take all that slave shit out of those museums with the chains, because they didn't bring all these people from Africa to America. These are all free people. These are Indians in here mixed up with I can't even speak. I'm so angry. When this is just one municipality, Connecticut. We're not even finished. We're literally still in Connecticut. You brought a few white guys with one shot goddamn guns, brought all these niggas from Africa to United States. Now we're in Delaware. This goes on for pages and pages and pages. Get out of here. Get out of here. You're talking about men ages 36 to 55. They'd have beat the shit out of those slave captors. You ain't put all these people in chains. And they're saying millions. No. So that's the shit that I want erased from there. Get that African. There's no such thing as an African American. Well, today it is. Obama. Yeah, he's an African American, not the people that stayed here in 1830 that didn't go to Oklahoma. There were millions of Indians across these states. And I'm telling you, Mr. Trump, we're not going to play these pussy games. These were the Indians. They were always the niggas. They was always the niggas. You called them coloreds, niggas. You gave them all these names except for who we were here. These are not slave masters in the South. Make it make sense. These guys, they're not even over 5 feet tall. And how are they going to withstand holding slaves on their plantations? A bunch of, look at the inner city men today in the hoods. You think these guys are going to maintain a bunch of niggas on their farm and beat them with chains and whips? Get the hell out of here. That story needs to come out of the Smithsonian. These are the Indians that lost their lands. Hey, what are your thoughts, Dulcina? I mean, I'm serious. You look at them, and there's no way they're going to be slave masters over all those people that's on that list. That's what makes me angry.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly most times. And I know a piece Americanism, I don't want to take up too much. So for her to get into, but most of the time they're like, it's a museum. A museum should have artifacts, but you guys have a whole bunch of paintings from the 20th century and different things illustrating something that happened that didn't. So take out the fake drawings, put in real artifacts that are from America, and let's start highlighting the history. I think that's a good thing.
And that's true. That's very true. And stop calling people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, stop calling them African Americans, because they're not. And neither are the people that you're showing in those old photos that you have. You're calling them African Americans. Where's your proof that these people didn't come from Africa? How dare you put a label on another label on them? Okay. After them deciding in 1830 that they were not going to go to Oklahoma. What happened to all those Indians? You telling me they just disappeared in thin air? There were millions of Indians that did not go to Oklahoma, and they make it seem like so many did. No, they did not. There were already Indians in Oklahoma. And it just makes me so angry.
Peace, Sister Bethy. I'm sorry, my voice is out, but but I did want to talk about this because when it comes to this story that you just brought up, it's almost like that DEI story that Dulcinea was talking about. If you listen very closely, she brought up that artifacts may be leaving the Smithsonian, but then she started talking about Hispanics, the art museum. They're going to take out some gay. So what they did is they used us as the face, but the real grievance is the other groups, because I look closely into this story, and the only thing that was taken out was a Bible by there was a book I gave to you earlier, and it was just a Bible. And the lunch counter for Greensboro, that lunch counter for Greensboro was placed into the National American Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So it was taken out of the African American Museum, and it was placed in the American Museum, in which we are Americans. So our history was placed into the main museum. And so nothing really was taken out. there's no narratives that's changing. And so we might want to get some of those things taken out. But the point is they're trying to rile our community up for grievances that are done to other groups.
Correct. I agree. I agree that would be the slick move. Or if they put our face there, and I agree, because that's how they operate, then we'll be able to help the DEI people get the hell out of here. No. Like this is painful for me, y'all. I'm sorry. I just get very emotional because they forget who they call us all the time. We was always the Negro Indians. We were always the Indians. Indian Negroes, Negro Indians. They went around so many times. Indian Negroes, Negro Indians, throughout history. So what? Did all the Negro Indians disappear? Yeah, they did. You put them as black on the census sheet. And then in my state, with its racist ass, they decide to put all of us together. Why is this Indian wearing the Indian outfit? We didn't even dress like that, to keep it a buck. And it's the depictions. It just makes me so angry, and I want them to stop calling us African Americans. That's the major thing I want. And you prove that my ancestors came from Africa. I know more about my history than you. How dare you be somebody of another race telling me who the fuck my ancestors are? Excuse my language, but that's humiliating to me. You silenced our grandparents and told them that they couldn't say that they were Indians. They passed a law, an ordinance, basically, telling us we couldn't say we were Indians, that they would kill us or put us in jail. So we've been hiding in a mask before they even issued a damn mask. We've been wearing a mask forever before COVID. Before COVID, we've been wearing the mask, hiding under all these goddamn racial identities that they kept putting on us. And I blame our people for that. But I understand in a lot of instances, they could not say that they were the Indian, or else they would be killed or hung. And then in later years, because they couldn't figure out who was the Black European and who was the Indian. And then you want to throw these fucking Hollywood things up here. They were not slave masters in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Get the hell out of here. Over a bunch of us? I don't think so. And then in my racist ass state, them clunking. Oh God, I just can't. I can't.
And I personally, I don't know all the ins and outs of the government or anything, but I do think that this is a wonderful time because these executive orders and different things that taking place to, I don't know if we need a caucus or something to advocate, but I would love to see them actually put some of the primaries of these laws that they have split amongst different libraries in Europe, or different libraries hidden here in a section. I would love for them to put these original laws in the museum so they can see the change, the psyop that was done.
Correct. Where are the Indians that Andrew forced to leave? Those wishing to remain in the East will become citizens. They automatically made this. They didn't even pass no statute. We automatically became citizens. We didn't need no naturalization or anything. We were already here. Where are all those millions of Indians that stayed? All the Indians that decided to stay and not leave their homes. There were millions of us that didn't say, no, you're not going to come in here on our land and tell us to move to somewhere else. We're staying right in our homes. And yeah, we suffered greatly, which truly led up to the Civil War, because it was all over land. So if it's all over land and you have the white people fighting, and then you got the people of color fighting. It was all over land. That's what the Civil War was about. Land. So who you're fighting? You would be fighting the people who own the land, and that would be the Indians, correct? You're not going to be fighting Africans over land. You're not going to be fighting no other race. You're not going to be fighting Chinese people over land on the mainland here in the North. So who does that leave it to be that you're fighting over in a war to keep the land? Who would it be, y'all?
It
I'll
would
wait.
definitely be the Indians. Absolutely.
And you better believe the Civil War, again, and I'm going to keep throwing this up there, and I'm keep smacking them in the face with it. It's not going, these are not the guys that were fighting the United States government over the land. Not for no land in Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. None of the Confederate states. Kentucky, Illinois, Alabama. These guys wasn't no slave masters and owners of land. They're not even on the census sheets. Get out of here. So,
and I want some truth about the Confederates. Like I'm for them highlighting them again, getting a section, putting it in, but be honest, who are the Confederates? Don't just put it as if they're just a whole bunch of white people that were fighting for land, because that's not who the Confederates were.
Facts. That's right. Stop calling us African American, because we're not. We're Americans. We have nothing to do. Not that we hate Africans, but my God, we want to be who we are. We're tired of hiding. I made sure my state is correcting who I am. You're not going to put me as no African in my family. Didn't know nothing about Africa or coming. There's no passed down history. And it wasn't so long ago. I have grandmother that died in 1837. She would know if she came from Africa. But that wasn't the case because her mother was born here. We did not come from no Africa. And I'm just like so disgustingly tired of it. Don't scoop me in just because my skin is beautiful and tawny. So what? That don't mean I came from Africa. You have your own identity. You're Irish, you're Dutch, you're French, you're Russian, you're German, you're Jewish. I'm American and I don't have nothing to do with Africa. So I want to show this because he's working with ICE. And then I'm going to get to your document, Americanism, after I show this. Apparently, he's working.
Shocked that the deal has gone this far. And with some of the terms that I've just learned about, that there was no collaboration or briefing with the council. And I don't want to see a repeat of what we saw in Virginia. The commanders reached out to me late last week. We didn't discuss any of the terms. And I absolutely want to have an open door with the commanders. But trying to jam the council with a July 15th deadline when the mayor hasn't even gotten us to budget. Let me repeat, the mayor will be 7 weeks late in getting us to budget. And that it will be all consuming for the next 2.5 months.
So what do you think she's putting the card at?
Wait a minute.
I am shocked.
Wait a minute. I don't even think that's the video. My bag. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Jeez, I had the wrong thing. My bag, you guys. Got that on. So here we go.
A massive immigration enforcement crackdown has led to hundreds of arrests in Florida in a matter of days. Immigration and Customs Enforcement posted on X that ICE Miami and Florida law enforcement arrested nearly 800 undocumented migrants in the first 4 days of their Operation Tidal Wave this week. In response, Governor Ron DeSantis posted that, quote, Florida is leading the nation in active cooperation with the Trump administration for immigration enforcement and deportation operations.
It was in like, that's one.
Where are you taking him?
Wants you trespass as well, so let's go.
For what? For grocery shopping? In the Spring Hill, Florida Walmart, that man being arrested is Tony Nagwin. His crime? Shopping while Asian. Moments earlier, Walmart protection specialist David Pettigrew mistakenly thought Nagwin was this man, Cody Vonderland.
There's an Asian male in the store right now. His name is Cody Vonderland. He is trespassed from the store. He is not allowed to be here, and he also tends to be violent and carries weapons.
Okay. I don't need to show that. Let's show the other one. Let's show this one. Because Trump is getting them they going in nightclubs getting their asses. Here we go.
Mountain region. As you can see this saying more than 200 people were inside the Colorado Springs underground nightclub when the DEA and local federal partners made entry around 3:45 local time. Drugs and weapons were seized and more than 100 illegal aliens are now in custody facing potential deportation. So we are following this very closely here on Live Now from Fox about these arrests being made, this DEA in Colorado, as we have more video of it on Live Now from Fox. I want to give you more information as federal authorities announced that more than 100 illegal immigrants were detained.
You see all of those people out there feeling good, partying, doing drugs, got guns. There's more to this story, too.
In a massive raid in an underground nightclub, the Drug Enforcement Administration led a multi-agency operation early Sunday morning, arrested 114 illegal immigrants at the venue that contained more than 200 people. Authorities uncovered drugs, including pink cocaine, as well as evidence of prostitution and multiple firearms during the operation. Of course, we are following it on social media. They said those facts that they have taken more than 100 illegal aliens into custody. Drugs and weapons also seized there at this operation. Attorney General Pam Bondi applauded the operation, which included 300.
You see the chicks that's for the streets? They there too.
Officials across multiple agencies, including the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm, ATF. She said on social media this morning, the DEA apprehended those 100 illegal aliens at an underground nightclub frequented by TDA, Tren de Aragua, and MS-13 terrorist. Cocaine, meth, pink cocaine seized. 2 people were also arrested on existing warrants. She complimented the operation, the multi-agency operation, talking about this. So we're following that.
So basically what they did was they brought all of the stuff that they had going on outside of the United States into the United States, and they were still partying. See, what liberals won't tell you is that these people are not people that are just working and having a good time and working hard and adding value into the American system and paying taxes. Nah, they bringing in these hoes from the streets. They got drugs, they got guns. Who the hell know where they got the guns from? Who the hell they know where they got the drugs from? But it is all interconnected. And if it wasn't a big deal and if they were so legal, then why are they running out? And why do they have to do a multi-agency, you know what I'm saying, raid on the whole situation in order to make sure that we keep Americans safe? Now, these are the people that's going around and hanging out in your neighborhoods. Again, they got drunk, guns, drugs, the whole nine yards. But it's funny because you'll see people like AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Bernie Sanders and all of these people defend this type of behavior. Let's go over there to Colorado to see exactly what the DEA is saying and get more insight and information so we can better understand exactly how this thing is playing out.
So good morning. John Pullen with DEA and the Rocky Mountain Division. We're here on the scene of an underground nightclub where over 300 federal law enforcement, along with our local partners from El Paso County and Colorado Springs PD, executed an enforcement operation this morning. It's a drug investigation. We seized quite a number of guns and took a number of people into custody. I think what I'd like for people to know as a result of this operation is that Colorado Springs is waking up to a safer community today.
Jonathan, give us some perspective here. 300 law enforcement officers. What brought about this kind of requirement, this kind of need to be here with that show of force?
So this is an underground illegal nightclub, okay? And what was happening inside was significant drug trafficking, prostitution, crimes of violence. We seized a number of guns in there. We had active duty service members who were running security at the club and involved in some of these crimes. And in fact, we had over 100 illegal aliens.
They said they had active duty service members that were running security. And so they're not doing it by themselves. They're also getting help from people that are here, that are active duty service members. That means that you got traders and people that are looking to profit. And we all know that profitability goes across the board. So it's a trickle down, right? Trickle down economics. But there are people that are profiting off of what is happening when it comes to these illegal migrants that's inside of this country. And they don't tell them how they was getting paid, what they was doing, and if they were willing to be active duty service members while at the same time running security at this illegal operation, then who can you trust? Why do you think that people are moving the way that they're moving inside of our country and thinking that it's okay?
Inside as well, and those over 100 illegal aliens were taken into custody by ICE.
Active duty service members helping as security here. Can you elaborate on that at all?
So it's an ongoing investigation, but we had over a dozen active duty service members in the club tonight, either as patrons or working as armed security.
Ain't that crazy?
How many of those were detained and what are they facing right now?
So Army CID was one of our partners out here, and they're going to work with us on what the next steps for those active duty service members looks like.
You mentioned that this is a drug trafficking operation. Can you elaborate on any drugs you found, the amount, any charges you anticipate that could come out of tonight?
So as you may suspect, when the cops showed up at the door, most of the drugs hit the floor. And we did find cocaine. It looks like some pink cocaine or the Tusi. And there was a little bit of other drugs, but we haven't had time to test everything. But there were dozens of small packages of drugs that they've recovered so far that I've personally seen.
How does it help information?
This has been a long-term investigation by DEA and a number of our federal partners. And so we've been working on this underground nightclub for a number of months, doing undercover surveillance, a lot of other work to identify what's going on here. And again, months-long information about drug trafficking and prostitution happening inside.
How many people were actually inside of this underground nightclub?
We estimate over 200 people were inside the nightclub when we came here.
They probably came early.
That's why we needed such a large force. Anytime you're dealing with
most of these things, it really don't start getting popping until later on into the night. So they probably came early. It's a lot of other people that should probably be arrested in this situation also.
That many people, we want to do it safely, and that's what we did.
Because of the nature of the nightclub, are all of them facing charges? Everyone inside?
No, they're not. A lot of people were turned away. As I said, over 100 went into ICE custody. A few people went on state arrest warrants. They had outstanding warrants. And we actually have a few other operations pending right now across the city. We're waiting to determine if there'll be other arrests from those.
Did you guys face any immediate threats going in, or was everything just a smooth operation going in and out, making sure everything was taken care of?
Anytime there's 200 people, there's going to be a little bit of concern about safety, but overall it was a safe operation.
Was TDA present here?
In our investigation, we have noticed TDA, MS-13, and I believe Hell's Angels in this club. I don't have the information about whether those members were there tonight, but we're still working through a lot of that because we have so many people in custody. We're working through a lot of the information about who's who.
Jonathan, after the raid in Adams County back in January, you received criticism because you didn't have arrests. You talked about the cops went in, the drugs went to the ground. Are you expecting to be criticized here, and how do you address those critics now?
So DEA is going to continue to work to keep our community safe, no matter what the criticism is, right? We are not going to accept drug trafficking and prostitution in our cities. And so absolutely Colorado Springs is waking up to a safer city this Sunday morning.
Can you talk to us about the local assistance and, how that all played out?
Absolutely. We had over 10.
These reporters need some better questions on the law.
Federal agencies in support of this operation, but we also had Colorado Springs PD and El Paso County Sheriff's Office supporting us.
So again, if you talk to liberals, then every person that's over here, and we need to go through with a scalpel instead of making sure that we address this for what it is. We got to give our law enforcement, our drug enforcement, the ICE, everybody, immigration, customs, everything. Everybody needs a round of applause on this situation I'm thankful. I don't think that these people need to be benefiting off of the United States of America while at the same time making our communities less safe. Let me know what y'all think inside in the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description.
Now,
So, thoughts? Your
Hmm.
thoughts?
Sister Bethy,
Huh?
I find it strange that in this case you see military is involved. We've
Yep.
also hello Street Smoke. We've also seen where these judges have been arrested. So the judges are involved, and you have all of this quote unquote law enforcement that are helping illegal immigration. And I find that just really just outstanding. That is crazy.
Alarming. It's alarming.
Right.
The judge hid the I'm sorry, Dosine. The judge hid the immigrant in the damn jury duty office. And so they arrested her ass. Did y'all hear that?
I didn't, but I have to look into that because what it was reminding me of in Peace Straight Smoke is like before Trump was even elected and people were complaining. I don't know if there was one in Colorado Springs, but definitely in Denver, Colorado. I'm in Austin, Texas. That's a sanctuary city. So they were kept complaining that these illegal immigrants were taking over apartments, taking over places, running drug rings and all that. And that was being suppressed from the media altogether. They were saying that that's fake news. And now we're seeing that come full circle that these people are getting arrested. This is happening in people's cities where people were taking over these nightclubs, these apartments, different places. And to have so many people that are in on it, it's definitely going down. It's going to get crazier than this, I'm sure.
A mess. I got it up right here. Let me see. Here we go. Oh, did you want to say something, Straight Smoke, before I show the video of the judge trying to hide an illegal immigrant in the jury room and they arrested her ass? And I think it was somebody else, another judge.
Yeah, we're about to be up to 3 judges. And that was 2 in 2 days. Let's keep it all the way neat. That was 2 in 2 days. What you seen right here was that during the last administration, you had a full circle of low-level FBI, low-level DOD that were giving orders to watch over certain groups in certain cities, like as in New Mexico, where you were talking about, and I've already looked at this. They have taken over apartment complexes. Okay, so the whole thing is that they were always monitored, they were always watched. But the whole thing about it is that these people were being paid by these illegals, and they were being subsidized by the federal government, aka your tax dollars.
There you go. Check this out.
Outside a Wisconsin courthouse, tonight a dramatic escalation in the fight between the Trump administration and the courts over deportations.
It is clear that FBI is politicizing this situation to make an example of her and others across the country who oppose these attacks on the judicial system.
Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan now out on bail after being arrested this morning in the parking lot of her own courthouse, accused of obstructing the arrest of an undocumented immigrant. According to court documents, that immigrant is 31-year-old Eduardo Flores Ruiz, who had a deportation order against him. The FBI says federal agents showed up with that warrant at Judge Dugan's courthouse last week and planned to arrest Ruiz in a public hallway outside Dugan's courtroom, where Ruiz was facing charges of domestic abuse. According to a criminal complaint, when Judge Dugan heard about the planned arrest, she became visibly angry and commented that the situation was absurd. Then the FBI says the judge instructed Ruiz to leave through a back door of the courtroom, then escorted Ruiz and his attorney to another non-public door. According to the documents, Ruiz made it outside and sprinted down the street before he was arrested after a foot chase.
I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today.
That message comes as a former New Mexico judge and his wife were also arrested this week for allegedly harboring a member of the violent gang Tren de Aragua at their home, which he denied. President Trump today on Air Force One accusing the judiciary of standing in the way of his crackdown on illegal immigration.
These are judges that just want to, show how big and important they are. We have hundreds of thousands of people that we want to get out of the country, and the courts are holding us back.
And Gabe joins us outside FBI headquarters. Gabe, back to that Wisconsin judge. We're now hearing from her after her arrest.
Yes, Lester, she just released a written statement saying that she's committed herself to the rule of law and principles of due process for her entire career, adding that she looks forward to being exonerated. Lester?
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Thanks for watching.
I'm like, hold up. How is upholding the law letting an illegal immigrant escape out the back door with his attorney to avoid ICE? I mean, your thoughts? She shouldn't even be a judge. That's treason to me. Your thoughts?
That story didn't tell the whole story, because he was committing crimes on people and his victims were there. So they're there to make sure the perpetrator of the crime goes to jail. And when the FBI came, the public defender took pictures, and then the judges stalled the FBI, had them go to another room, but there was another undercover FBI that they didn't know was there and who saw the whole thing and was able to get the other suspect captured. But it wasn't just that she put him outside the back door. They evaded. They tried to get the FBI, where their attention was on something else.
Mhm.
This guy was the victims of the crime were there, and they saw all of this. This was right in front of the other victims. I mean, this was an egregious story. And I also find it strange that the second judge, they didn't tell you his name. They just said, oh, there's another judge out there. And they didn't tell you what really happened with that one. And that one, that guy had decapitated heads. He is
Get out.
Remember, and that judge got rid of the phone, the evidence tampering and everything. So this is crazy. These people are like knee deep in helping these people evade authorities.
All right. How does a judge? All right. I understand that this is a state judge, of course, not a federal judge. So obviously it's a state court. You go and you hide an illegal immigrant and his attorney and assist, and you know that they're waiting to take this guy. How is she going to be exonerated from that?
You're not. Absolutely not. So what you're seeing is that anyone that falls in this field right now, if you would look back on how they got elected, where their money came from, you will find one person. And that is, well, I can't say one person. This is all through Act Blue, and this is all through George Soros. That's how these people got elected. That's how they got in office. This is a serious matter. And that's why you will see Trump going after Act Blue accordingly.
That's insane. Oh, what's your thoughts, Dulcie?
This crazy. I'm just thinking, like, where and who are they committing these crimes against? Because it really doesn't make sense to me. Them, like, all I can think of is that it has to be something that they're okay with it. And how are they okay with it? And if it was happening to them, I'm sure they wouldn't be okay with it. So I just need to know, who are these victims? Where are these crimes happening?
The one thing I will say, as far as the victims that they're referencing to, a lot of the times they have a hard time really wanting the people to actually say that that was their family member. no one wants to say that that was their family member. So they want to keep it quiet. Does that
Do
make
you think
sense?
that she has some like connection with
Yeah,
him?
that makes more because because my whole thing is if they're doing this on a mainstream to their people, to their families, what would cause them to be like, oh, I'm gonna vouch for this illegal alien? How would that even make sense?
Yeah, what was it in her to just go out and say that's absurd? Because she knows that they're out. ICE is out there waiting to take him in custody, and you just, as a judge, you just finished ruling on him regarding his domestic violence, and then you turn around and say it's absurd that they're going to take this illegal immigrant, and you're a judge. What the fuck?
Go ahead, Isness.
You got it, Isness.
Well, I wanted to say that, thank you, is that a lot of times these people live in urban areas. So a lot of times we're the victims. And so maybe this is all intentional. I don't know. Because when we are the victims, are we being heard? Are we being believed? Do people care? Right? So if one of these people came and say, tried to do something to me, would the police really take it seriously? So the thing is that I don't know if this is orchestrated, if this is a bigger, like, Straight Smoke was saying that Act Blue is involved. Is this more of a bigger organized effort to cause havoc on the American people?
That's what I'm wondering. And I'm also wondering, like, the underground bus that they did. Was that even fucking real? I mean, because just the way that I don't know, ever since Black Lives Matter, it almost makes me, it really made me not believe anything that they show, like this underground raid. The girls' dress looked fucked up. It just looked fake to me. I don't know. It could just be me. It could be me and my thoughts, but it didn't look real. And I'm just wondering if it's something fake that they're showing us. Yeah, we're getting rid of these immigrants. Look what we did. Look what happened. And all those people that came out with the guy with his hands trying to run. Will you run? And then you sit down and put your hands up, and the girl coming out in the red dress. I guess she's supposed to be a prostitute. Are all these actors?
If I may, Sister Bethy.
Oh, and Act Blue is under investigation right now. You got it.
So inevitably, what you're seeing is they're trying to desensitize the public to feel sympathy or empathy for someone. They're trying to desensitize the public. So you would be like, oh, you're supposed to care. Now, what they're not telling you on the flip side of that is that majority of these people that's here, they have Negro social security cards. Wait till that one comes out. They have been using, yes, Negro and white folks social security cards.
And I'm assuming that these are dead people already.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. Because as of right now, when I talk to my brother, who's still in Illinois, he works down at the Social Security Department in Illinois. Right now, they got 38,000 people that are dead, that illegal immigrants have their Social Security number.
That's insane.
They're also using live people's Social Security numbers. That's why we got all these life locks and all these programs about identity theft, because they also will take your Social Security number when you're alive.
So who's issuing it to them? Are they finding it, or are people stealing it?
No, they're issued this from that particular city,
from their Social Security departments.
Yes.
So when we see like the judges and everything that are doing this, is that why the judicial system is trying to hide it? Because they're going to get caught up in a bigger, I guess, scheme sooner or later, and they're trying to hide that?
So the NGOs is the ones that's paying these so-called judges. So once you take the money, you got to complete the process of the job, period, point blank. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
That's truly what this is. You already took $75,000. So now it's go time. You got to stand behind that money, or guess what's going to happen to you? I don't know if y'all remember when we had a whole bunch of I can't call them so-called senators, but it was like paralegals. Don't you remember the guy that got the guy that got shot in his car? The woman that got stabbed in her car. These were all
Yep,
people
I remember that.
right. These are all people that was doing this same work. It's a trickle down effect. And they're trying to desensitize you to say, oh, as Sister Bethy, as you said, this couldn't be real. Yes, this is real. Once you take that money, you better do what we're telling you to do. As I'll give you a prime example.
Where
HR
do those
McMaster.
people work at? The one that got shot in the car and stabbed.
I believe this was all on the East Coast, as a matter of fact. And I was just about to say, HR McMaster's father was smothered to death because he did not comply with what he had to do during the first Trump administration. Look it up.
Wow. This is crazy. But you gonna say something? Anybody else? Dulcie? Isness? No? Okay. Isness, do you want me to show the video or of the George Washington Williams, or do you, because I don't want to read.
Well, I found that because I was looking at that Black African American Museum, and I was trying to figure out because the Bible got taken. So I'm like, who's this George Washington in his Bible? And so that's where I found out that he was the author of this book. And so I was just trying to give you the book so you could look at it. You don't have to show it. I was just trying to give you, because it's from 1880. And he's talking about how, Black folks were doing fine at that time. If you go down.
Would the video state that, or?
I don't know. Did I send you a video? I don't think I sent you a video.
Okay, I'm going to show you because it has a picture of him. Look. I thought it was a video. Oh, my bad. Oh, my bad. Okay. Negro race in America from 1619 to 1880. Negroes as slaves, as soldiers, and as citizens. George Williams. Wow, it's 1,000 and something pages.
Yes,
so I
that
guess
does look like a video.
I thought it was, yeah.
Under the bottom, that's a video.
No, it's not. It's on National Archives, so it's a
flipping through the book
page flipper. Yeah. So, but they have something down here. Is this some of it or isness?
I was reading the PDF, so I'm not sure. I think that gives you like a summary of who he was and why he was important. This is a name that I've never heard of before. I don't know if you have.
No, I haven't. Do you want me to read it in the beginning or in the preface or just?
Well, I don't know if you want to show it right now because I'm not sure exactly what it all says, because it starts off with his African. Obviously, he's part of that. He might be part of the Colonization Society.
Okay.
So I don't know his background and who he is. I've never heard of this guy before.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll make a note, copy this. I'll also upload it on our website and I'm going to put it in the chat for people to read. I stuck it there in the chat, you guys, and I'll save this. What I'll do is download it like I did before as a PDF and get into it. Then and I'll get into it. another time, except for today, because I didn't want to be on too long. I still got to cook those home fries. But I really wanted to go back to the document that I was showing everybody before. Hang on. Shit. I want to go back to this document because it's mind-boggling. This is so mind-boggling to me when you see all these free Negro head of households, and these are it's by state. This is Delaware alone. I went through this, and when you're looking at this is the census, and all these names you see listed are the head of households. But then when you go over to the right in the total column right here, that's how many people were in each of these households. So it's quadruplet. And this is for every page. So it's not just Thomas Emery, it's Thomas Emery plus 5 more people. These lists, the names you see are the head of households. And this is for every page in here. There is no way all these people were brought from no damn Africa. And this is in 1830. Same year, 1830. So if we have all these people, okay, this is a head of household. He's a male. They're all male. These are all men, some female when you see F. And they're from the ages 24 to 36. And 8 people live in this house. So imagine all these totals add up. It's 3 separate columns. And it's by state. In this household, it's David Chamberlain, a male. The ages of the folks in that house is between 55 and 100 years old. Yet 13 people live in that house. So you know they had some big property. This is back in 1830. All the Indians that wish to remain will become citizens of their states. And so here it clearly shows you who the damn Indian is. All these people, and they all have the common American Indian last name. Jacob Martin. This person, James Tobian, male. And the people in this household range from the age 36 to 55. And it's 11 people that live in that house. 13. We know we had the big families back then. 13 people, 10 people, 16 people. And this here is you're getting a snapshot of the folks across these 50 states, all the free Negroes, aka Indians. Now in 1830, they wasn't called no damn Negroes. They were not called Negroes in 1830. That's bull crap. But then, it's like all the way. It's so many, y'all. It's just unbelievable. This is DC alone. Millions of us all across these states. And it's just mind-boggling for me. And I'm just like overwhelmed. That's the rest. That's the ending of Carter G. Woodson's report. There is no way. No way.
No, I seen something like that in like Pahokee, Florida, and it's 1945, and it's a colored census, but it doesn't break everybody down by race. It's just like everybody in this particular territory or province is colored. I'm like, were they using colored in 1945?
Yes, in some instances, because my grandmother was born in Tampa, Florida, and she was born in 1916, and on her birth certificate and her marriage certificates, they have her listed as colored.
And if you look closely at that book that I gave you, he when he talks about Americans, specifically Americans, he uses the term colored.
Yeah.
And I also know people born in like the 40s who were born as colored people.
Yeah, my dad, my grandmother, they all had colored.
If I may,
Oh yes.
both sides of my family, my mom's side and my dad's side, both my grandmothers had 16 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on both of their birth certificates at that time, it stated colored.
Yeah.
So I understand the hijack thoroughly.
Correct. If indeed in 1830, if indeed we were Africans, they would have listed us as Africans.
Exactly.
And you literally, they would have noted as African. They would have put an A on the census sheet instead of a B. A for African.
Sister Bethy, they didn't have no problem with that in the Caribbean.
Facts. Their British records have like nothing to do with United States. They literally list them as African. And their
That's
age,
what I'm
like
talking about.
old Betty, she was
Yep.
how old? I forgot. What was she? 100 years old or something like that. And I it's just mind-boggling. And then
I
they,
remember when you went through that.
Yeah.
I remember when you went through those documents showing those people in the South Caribbean that was brought over, and they distinctly said who was African.
Yeah.
They distinctly said that.
That was the British, not United States. Yep.
Ma'am. And I remember and just to back you solely up on that, just what you're saying right now, if that was the case, they would have listed these Negroes as being African.
Facts.
So, yep.
Facts. I'm gonna just bring that to their attention again, so that they could see, that these are not United States record. This is British government. It has nothing to do with United States. It's right here. See, so you can see this is Jamaica. It has nothing. All this is Jamaica. It has nothing to do with the United States. But what I can do is actually pull up a record and just show you. Because that writing, that database is what you see with Ancestry. But here you go. Let me do a share screen again. Their records, United States had nothing to do with Jamaican government records or British. See up here, it says former British colonial dependencies. And over here, they literally tell you African or Creole. And when you go and look in their archive or historical, they break down why they have it African as African and Creole. They said because these are babies, whoever was born there, they're Africans that were born in Jamaica. When you get down here, if you came from Africa to Jamaica and it's during the slave trade, they listed you as an African. Negro has never been a race. It has always been a color. That's why they have color. Negro. It means black. Remember, Negro means black. That's why they have it listed here. So they separate out color from race. This baby is a Negro, meaning it's a black baby, 6 months old, and they listed it as Creole because the baby was born there. And over here, they tell you who their mama is, and you'll find the mama down here. Now, Betty's 100. Her color is negro, which is black. She was 100 years old, and she's African. We don't do this. We don't have anything, again, we don't have anything to do with Jamaica's records. And it's showing you here, Jamaica, right here. I don't have no reason to lie, and I'm not here to hurt nobody's feelings or make nobody feel some type of way. But if the British government saying you were African, okay, you have to take that up with the Jamaican government and say, hey, they lied on our record. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to believe. I don't think the Brits would just lie. I mean, they literally wrote out African. And they tell you where they brought the Africans to. And it's thousands in here, y'all. That thing is thousands, thousands, million, right? Millions. This is in the millions. And it tells you right here, enslaved person. And that's the slave owner.
Mm-hmm.
Nationality African. It's the master record, Old Betty. So I don't have any, we don't have anything in the United States to do with those records. And I mean, it's not my fault. Those records are, it is what it is. And our records, it don't note that. We're black on our records. We were never racially identified by our census takers as a people because we were not Africans. They didn't bring them on the mainland. They brought them to the islands. When they say they brought them to America, yeah, Jamaica's in the Americas. But where did they bring all these millions of slaves? They brought them in Brazil, and they tell you, in Jamaica. And some of the other islands that were formerly British islands, like Barbados, some of those were British islands. They were not in the Virgin Islands. Those islands were not, they came part of the United States way later. They're not even listed as the 50 states. They were in the 1900s, but just because United States acquired the Virgin Island and British Island territories don't mean that the people there were not African or are who we are. I'm not saying all of them, but the Tainos were in Jamaica. Yes. The Tainos were in Barbados and places like Virgin Islands and all these other different islands. Yeah, they were Tainos and Arawak Indians there. But in Jamaica, they specifically list who the African was. So it is what it is. It's not my problem. I mean, but if people in Jamaica have issues with that, then they need to contact the British and tell them that, hey, I didn't come from Africa, and they could prove it. Why would they literally write that down there? And when you do look at here in Connecticut, it's very difficult to determine a Jamaican from an African. They look very much alike. They have very strong African features, and their foods are not like ours. I've never had a jar of curry on my shelf growing up as a kid. I didn't even know what that was, or jerk seasoning. None of that. I don't know. That's not the foods we ate on our food table. So I'm sorry. It's not me. I didn't make this shit up. I'm just showing you what it is.
Sister Becky, if I could, just to give even more clarity. I don't know if you have it readily available, but could you pull up what Frederick Douglass said?
Do you mean his whole speech?
Like, don't you remember the part like when he said his black brother, his sinews is all American?
Oh, that. And I'll pull it up if as long as you read it. As long as you read it, I'll pull it up.
I have no problem. I'm just going. Yeah.
There you go.
We have a fight on our hands right here. A fight for the redemption of the whole race, and a blow struck successfully for the Negro in America is a blow struck for the Negro in Africa. For until the Negro is respected in America, he need not expect consideration elsewhere. All this native land talk, however, is nonsense. The native land of the American Negro is America. His bones, his muscles, his sinews are all American. Let's go.
And y'all have to drop down, but I'm going to be tuning in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sweetheart.
No. I was just saying peace. I'm gonna be tuned in. I'm gonna be in the chat, but I had to drop down. But it's been great, and I'm still tuning in. Peace, American
Thank
is
you.
Ness.
Thank you
Peace,
for
straight
visiting me,
smoke, and
Dulcie.
thank you
I
so
appreciate
much, Sister Bethy. Of course.
I
Dulcinea.
appreciate it. And please don't forget to tell Frida and them what I said. Okay, you can tell them that in
Oh, I
confidence.
will definitely.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is give brother man his bomb drop. And I also want to again thank Chief Holiday for giving me this thumbnail to put up. So it's nice. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? Ah, damn, I could have pulled this up. I had it right here, something right there, instead of going to the original records, but they can see. This is very clear. I don't know if people saw that. There's old Betty right there. Can you guys see this in the chat? You understand that when you see our records, our records here, this tells you what color is. That Negro is a color. It's not a race. It's not an ethnicity. We were never racially, our ethnicity was never documented on records in here on the mainland. We were always an observed people. So when you see Negro, that's a color. It's not a race or an ethnicity.
And when you see the documents of the British colonies, they're not calling those people Africans. And so we have our British colonies as well. So why in the islands were they calling those people Africans, and here they weren't? Do you understand? It would have been the same terminology.
Right. And we remember we didn't go in their colonies until 1830. We weren't part of them until 1830. We were not part of the United States colonies until, that's what I was trying to explain to everybody. We were never part of the United States colonies until it was decided 1830. And I'll pull it up again. And I'll ask Straight Smoke to read this again. You got to keep looking at it until you literally see it. It is for what it is. We didn't become part of their colonies until, go ahead, you got it, Smoke.
Do you want me to do the whole thing, Sister Bethy?
I think you should, because we have a lot of new people here.
Okay, will do. In 1830, just a year after taking office, Jackson pushed a new piece of legislation called the Indian Removal Act through both Houses of Congress. It gave the president power to negotiate removal treaties with Indian tribes living east of the Mississippi. Under these treaties, yes, ma'am.
Stop right there. Now, if you're talking removal and you're negotiating removal treaties, it wasn't nothing here but whites and blacks. Who are you talking about? I just showed you all those Negroes all over the face of the United States. And he tells you in the beginning, this is not all of the Negroes, because it was only at that point 23 states that they got them census sheets from. It still was 25 more states by 1830. And it was loaded with us all across the 50 states. So who is he talking to? Can somebody in the chat tell me? Who is he talking to about removing? If we're all over these 50 states like that, and that's only half. And other people, our people was not cooperating neither in other states, especially in the South. They was like, you know how our parents is, get the hell away from my door, don't tell them nothing. Go ahead, Smoke. Under these trees.
Under these trees, the Indians were to give up their lands east of the Mississippi in exchange for lands to the west. Those remaining in the east would become citizens of their home state.
So
This act
if you
affected. Yes, ma'am.
now, go ahead.
This act affected not only the southern nations, but many others further north. The removal was supposed to be voluntary, and peaceful, and it was that way for the tribes that agreed to the conditions. But the southern states resisted, and Jackson forced them to leave.
Now, those wishing to remain are those that were very cooperative, which is why we have this list up. Where is it? Oh God, I hate when that happens. I thought I had it up. Or I must have closed it out. I'll just pull it back up. It's not hard to do. And just blow it back up. Those wishing to remain. This is the same year. Oh, God. Damn, what did I do here?
Isness is good to hear your voice again.
It sure is. She voice. Are you drinking your tea?
Well, I need to make some tea. I've been drinking water, but so I don't know what kind of voice. But
I know the feeling, girl. Oh, my voice, it gets that scratchy. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm getting that up so they can literally see the tribes over here.
Isness rock you some good ginger root.
Now, this.
Ginger. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, ginger root, girl. I love ginger root too. It tastes so good.
Well,
so here we go. This is in 1830. This is in 1830. These are all, this is not even all of them. As he mentioned earlier, he said, this is not all. He was very clear. This is not the complete. I think we'll find that even up here. All these heads of these families. And he was very clear. Okay, here we go. You can't, he let you know. These were not all, and you could tell our people with their attitudes and the way they talk. But go ahead, read that, Smoke. These were all, he tells you before you even get to them. You there, Straight Smoke? He tells you. These were not all of the free Negro families in this country in 1830.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Yep. He tells you right in the beginning before he even gets started. These were not all of the free Negro families in this country in 1830. He made that very clear before we get down to it. These are the tribes that remained. That's why they're here. These are the tribes that remain. Every family on here is a damn tribe.
That's a lot of niggas.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. Excuse me. That is a lot of people.
Yeah, it's massive. And the thing that is mind-boggling to me, because these are just listing the head of household, whether it's mom or dad. But over here telling you actually how many was in the house. And this list goes on forever. This is just Connecticut alone. And this is not all of the people in Connecticut.
Right on.
They break it down by county. And these are all, remind you, all free Negroes in 1830. These are those that remain. That's who he's talking to, Andrew Jackson in 1830. I can imagine our people, these Indians here. saying, hell no, I ain't going to Oklahoma. I live in Connecticut. The hell am I go there for? Maryland, it's just huge.
Why
So
would I leave my land to go somewhere I don't know about and have to restart all over?
Correct. Why would we even do that?
I'm good. I'm good. I got abundance of land that we grow on. I got plenty of livestock. I have free roaming deer. Why would I leave my
Why would
land?
we go? It's like really
Oh, you say?
crazy,
Oh,
mind-boggling
you
to me.
saying? Oh, okay. So if I stay, I'm just gonna become a citizen. That's what you telling me? Okay. You know what? Citizen it is. Right now, here's the trickery that came into place. Well, once you became a citizen, now you can be taxed.
There it is.
So if you don't pay your taxes, now we can take your land. The mineral rights and the oil rights that's underneath the land that you don't even know about.
Yeah. So now
See what I come to I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead, honey.
What I've come to realize is that here in Kentucky, I can go every other 5 miles and someone has a oil burner going for the oil in the ground. So they knew exactly what they were doing. That's why they set up militia shelters every so often. Because they
And
knew what was underneath the ground.
Exactly. And don't forget, in 1830, and then him reading the story of all the shit that was happening to the free Indians, those that remained, okay, in 1830. That's all of what they was going through and being put through with not being able to bring charges against white people. That's what led up to the Civil War. And if these are the same people 30 years later that's going to fight in the Civil War because they're tired at this point. They're tired. They're tired. It's like, oh, we just going to go to war. So if they're in their land, who you think is fighting against the North and the South is fighting against? They're fighting to stay in their land and for, better civilization and rights. That's what it was all about. It was all about land.
Yep.
So if they're all in their homes, okay, across the states, and them wasn't all the Negroes, like he said, in here in America, those are the ones that was fighting in the Civil War. Who else? These guys were not the dudes. And I just put this up because I call it the little Hollywood Indian pictures. I guarantee you these dudes was not fighting in the Civil War here over no goddamn land. It was us niggas. That was us fighting over our land. Us. I ain't got time for all that. But I don't know. What's your thoughts, Isness, before I close out? Her voice is hoarse. Your mic is muted if you're talking, honey.
Well, the way that you present that, it makes it so easy to understand that the Civil War was about people trying to protect and hold on to the last piece of their territory, which was the South. And it makes so much sense. So that's all I really have to say. You could tell it was a war over people protecting their lands.
Facts. And honey, you better believe that's exactly what it was. That is exactly what it was. And this is why I hate those museums, because they're bullshit.
Yep. And Sister Bethy, guess what I found? I found the Iroquois Confederacy flag.
I mean, we fit the picture. The Indian Negroes, the nigger Indians. That's they always refer to us Negro Indians, nigger Indians. Everything was just so mean. Negro Indians. Every article primary source written in those same times. This is in 1836. So who's the Negro Indians? Them same ones I just showed you on that list, on those list of people. Negro Indians is in open rebellion. You're damn right, because of those laws that was imposed.
I found it.
I'm
I'm
done.
gonna send it to you. I couldn't believe it when I actually got the original, and they doctored it up. I mean, they really doctored it up to say what the Confederacy was for the South. Nope, found the original, and lo and behold, there's a nigga standing on that. There's a nigga, bell pepper nose nigga, standing on that flag.
What, you emailed it to me?
I will. Oh, I can't wait for you to see it. I got it. I
Okay.
got it.
All
I
right.
sure
Well,
will.
whenever you get, I'll be back here tomorrow to pick up for everybody to reading, because Smoke's gonna be going live in a little while, I guess. But I'm gonna get off of here, man. It was great. It's this. You better fix that voice, girl. Take that medicine. Get yourself well. Kiss the wife. Straight Smoke. The babies. I'll be back tomorrow, same time. My lives during the week are always at between 3 and 4 because I get off of work. I come on after I get off of work. So I could, make room for Smoke. He'll be live later. But I'm gonna go make my dinner. I'll be back tomorrow so we can pick up where we left off. And I appreciate everyone for coming out, joining me today. We're just learning more about history, and I'm really glad. I know I just want them to remove more stuff. Oh, BAP is live. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know BAP was live. Okay, so he's live. I don't know. Maybe they'll pick up from there. Girly girl, hey. Hey.
Peace, Sister Bethy. Peace, chat.
Love.
Peace,
I hope
everybody.
to see you again, sis. Love y'all so much. I'm about to get on up out of here, and I'll tune in the BAP, I guess. Hey, y'all. Love y'all. Bye-bye.